Hello everyone, I am Cool Guy, and today we're doing something a little bit different. It could be a new episode of a new series if you guys are interested, but we're going to be starting with the Rusted Lands, and the goal is to break down certain areas with counters. And to be clear, these videos are to show hard counters and passive counters to areas, because most of the time we're wanting to stop a dominant position, or other times we're getting in a dominant position ourselves. Now, these are to put in your toolbox on the fly to use at your discretion in all game modes from Control to Iron Banner to Trials of Osiris. First, let's start off with the C spawn and jump right on in. So if you choose to play this side, especially in the beginning of the game, your direct threats in no particular order are 1. Top water tower, 2. Pipes to ramp, 3. Bottom field, and 4. The mini room special. So when pushing, these are the things you have to worry about mostly from that side. In the beginning, players like to combat them from C yard, and they use this lane. Sometimes you jump on the truck, and from that truck you can see to the top tower, but you can't see the left side of the tower from here, or from the lane itself you can see down into bottom field, because a lot of players like to hang out in bottom field and top water tower. Those two positions are key for the other side. So let's start with top water tower. What you can do is jump up onto this wall by C flag, and you can get that angle to top tower, because from right here you can see the left side. And here's how it looks if you were looking into the building. Most of the time players are scoped in down C yard lane, and they're looking down the lane, they're looking down over the ramp, and a lot of times they won't even know that you're there, and you can catch them sleeping. We also have bottom yard, and from the C area, this window is really good for throwing a skip, an axiom bolt, any grenade really. It's a good grenade window, but you can also jump up into the top right window and try to land some shots. Because right here, we're not really trying to be a threat. You're rarely a threat. You can get kills from right here. I've gotten kills from right here, but it's more about presence. They know that you're there, you're on their radar, and that leads to some mental mistakes, especially if you can get some sort of damage and somebody can clean him up. It's just a really good spot. Next, let's jump over to Mini Room by Special. It's one of my favorite areas to counter, because from right here, when you're there, you're close to the special, you like that part. You can survey down the ramp, you can look to the left side coming from B, a lot of areas you can look at. So the two spots I like to counter this from are 1, under the C flag, you can see right into the closet with an angle, and 2 is on this back wall. From right here in the start of a game, you could make it there first, 1, and also if you haven't killed them from there yet, it's pretty much easy shots on them. And again, as we go through these, you can go to them anytime passively to check the angle during any game mode, because most of the time there's a player sitting there, right? So what this does, as we discussed earlier, is not only trying to get the kill, but it's also presence as well. Presence is a big thing. It's more than one lane that they have to look at now. So they also have to look at ramp, they have to look to their left. Now they also have to look up in those buildings now. You have to put that in their head. A good amount of the time in Trials, I was able to get here and then just get a pick, and then we immediately rushed. So it's just a really good spot. So let's move on to the A point. 2 areas right here, it's situational, but most use the window to check the ramp, and they check the opening in the C building. Because when you're right here, that's the main goal, right? To check those 2 areas. But when you're right here, you're susceptible to any type of flank from the tunnel, or B path, or B door on your left. So a lot of players realize that, and then they move to this middle piece of concrete, but from right here, you kind of lose vision of the ramp. So another spot is in the back corner. Beyond that, you jump up onto this little pillar. It takes away those flank angles from the left, and it gives you the sole purpose of, again, looking at those 2 areas, the ramp and that window from C. And from the other side, most players aren't going to be trained to aim that high. So if you take fire, you can just kind of move off to your right, but you can get a pick from right here. Another problem with the A area is the stairs. A lot of players sit here in every game mode. So if I'm coming from the water tower side, I like to jump up onto this ledge. Now this spot is also really good for looking down B path, top field, B door, but you can round this, and when you round that, you can get a good grenade in, you can get a good snipe on the stairs, just get good shots, make him uncomfortable, period, make him backpedal, take position. That's the goal. You don't give yourself up too much when you're looking down that corner, because from right there, he's in a pretty dominant position. He can see a lot of people. He can head glitch the stairs if you're coming to his left. So it's a good spot to combat it. So let's move on to the B path, or top field. It's a very important area, especially like in Trials, because not all the time, but a good amount of the time, a lot of us just end up here. That's mostly because the team that spawns C is gifted the overtime zone because balance. So if I spawn A side, I go here and I call it the ship, right? And pretty much from the B side, again, they have that advantage. They have the position. They're gifted the zone. So from right here, you can work on a flank from the right side. You can survey. I call it a scout position. That's really what it is. Because if teammates are calling out they're all 3 left, I can try to get a pick. But if one of my teammates goes right and he has a backpedal, I can give him support. And if there is something going on the right side, I can shield myself with the coverage that I have and then just focus on it. I could look onto ramp, I could look down into bottom field and move when needed. Or if I know that they're at B, there are various angles that you can work with. You can see down one side of the flag cap, you can see right into the little platform, you can look on the back wall, you can look at the special. If you kind of move up, there's many things that you can do from right here. It's a good spot to throw grenades. It's just a very dominant point that you can do a lot with. Moving on to the pillar, it separates B door and B path. It can be accessed from both sides. And again, just like the ship, you're able to survey both sides from right here. So I've killed players like way back in the spawn that are kind of by that blue truck. You can throw grenades at choke points. Again, there's a lot that you can do. You can also do it both ways. You can round it and see the vantage point down into bottom field by ramp, using this as a pivot point to look left, to look right, and when need be, I move or try to get picks, help out my team, or if it's at the end of the game, I'm going for zone. So moving on to the B side, just like we did with the ship, you can jump up into this top right window. Now just be mindful that they can see your leg when you're doing this. And when at B, another thing I like to do is you look out and your main points that are your threats are top and bottom heavy, rubble, and then the path from C spawn. So when you get there, you usually, kind of sit here, look at those areas, and the people coming from that C path usually head glitch at this little concrete area. But what I like to do for those areas, you can jump up onto this back wall, kind of strafe left and right, and you can use the cover of the other wall, and people won't really be looking that high. Again, they're not really trained to look that high, and you can see all three of those areas, and you're in a pretty dominant position. It's a pretty good defensive spot. You can also look around behind you, and you can see the B door and B path. It's a good pivot point. And on the other side of things, say you're down in C spawn, say somebody's using this little platform, that angle, and he's just roaming around the whole game, you can go all the way in the back, there's a little ledge of concrete, you can jump in the corner, and it's a perfect angle up in there to try to take him out. And throughout this, I've been using a sniper rifle, but again, a pulse rifles are going to be good from that range scout rifle. It's getting shots in and making him move. It's presence. So also in B, there are various angles and there's various ledges to see different lanes. From right in the center, you can see down that C lane. You can also see down B path. You can jump in one of these, shoot a specific lane, and you can just kind of go left into cover if you need to. Moving on to heavy building. Now there are, again, a lot of spots you can just jump onto. You can see down B. But for when heavy drops, what I like to do, here's a quick one. I like to jump into this corner because it denies any angle from B, and the sole purpose is you can overlook the lane coming from C. And when heavy comes and a teammate pops it, you're close enough, it's going to be right below your feet, you can get it when you want. And lastly, really quick, there are lamps throughout Rusted Lands. Lamps all over it. Now, lamps that are lit up, you can't do anything with, but any lamp that is off or flickering, you can jump on. There are three noticeable ones. One is by the water tower, which can be used if needed, I guess. There's one by C, not so much. But then there's one at A side. It's right across from mid-tunnel. And I've used this a couple times in those standoff situations. You can kind of survey down into the door, the path, you can look right. Again, most people aren't trained to look that high. With all these spots, if you jump up, your sniper glint is going to be pretty telling. So if you get up there immediately with your sniper and scope, if they're not aimed down sights, most of them are. They're trained, they're just kind of in a spot and they want to get picks. But if you just jump up there with your primary, kind of survey, aim down sights in case he shoots at you, you want to then bring out the sniper to then bring the glint because you don't want to give away your position immediately because it can be seen if they're if in their peripheral vision. So there are a couple of angles for Rusted Lands, and they're good for just that. You're not going to be sitting there the whole game. Sometimes you passively go to them to check the spot because they have a very specific purpose. There are times when people just sit in that area, and a good example is that mini room by Special. There's always a guy in it, whatever game mode, Clash Control, Trials of Osiris, you're bound to find somebody there at some point. So from there, you need to let him know that he's not going to do that to you. You're not going to let him sit there. You're not going to let him do that to your team. He also then, he needs to realize himself that that's just one more lane that he needs to be aware of when he decides to go to that point. Let me know in the comments your guys' thoughts if you liked it, and of course, share any spots or angles that you guys have for Rusted Lands in the comments section. And depending on how this goes, I might just do more maps in the future. I decided to do this because I saw a lot of players struggle in Trials of Osiris for Rusted Lands, and I thought maybe I could help out in the future and every time that you play this board. And if you guys hadn't noticed, I also got an intro, and I would like to thank Z Gray Dragon for that. There's a link in the description to his channel. I'm as happy as I could ever be. And with his help, maybe one day we can turn this into an actual YouTube channel. So I really appreciate you guys stopping by, spending a little bit of your day with me, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.